Students of the township-based leaders 16 short films to highlight issues of gender-based violence as part of their participation in the campaign. To talk more about this initiative, I'm joined in studio now by Academy co-founder Thato Molamu and Relebogile Maifadi as a student. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
It's an important time for the country, perhaps the world at large, because women and gender-based issues have been such a big deal over the recent months. We've heard politicians speaking out, educators and women from all walks of life coming out in their numbers to say enough is enough. So, Thato, let me start with you. You doing your part. What is this campaign about?
I mean, the campaign itself mainly was a final year student project where we get to engage with our students. We have 100 students in total, and part of the 16 days campaign, they got to pitch 16 different storylines. And, you know, because of Gateway Media, we are a media agency, and we thought about how do we get to create conversations also using content? Because I think a lot of individuals have not really experienced a content piece that gets people engaging even after the 16 days of activism. So we wanted something that can live on, you know, after the campaign. And I think students came up with some very, very great storylines where we got to see actually storylines from victims and also those that have been victimized before. So you find that there's a psychological challenge that happens. And a lot of times we base and judge individuals saying that you've created an act of violence, but not understanding maybe there was an act of violence that was perpetrated on the young person before. And this is for young boys, young girls. And we get to see that people don't get to a place of healing. And we wanted to start the conversation of when can we start the healing using content to get engagements going.
Relebogile, as a student, I mean, you got to engage in more depth with the storylines and the different angles that you covered throughout the films. What for you stands out as the main themes of power which will make a difference in society?
I think for the most part, there've always been campaigns. We've always been bringing awareness to the plight of gender-based violence. And what I've learned throughout this entire process is that we need to be dealing with the core problem and starting with the perpetrator. They were once, you know, young boys that have been exposed to realities, social ills, but more than anything, we looked at it from that perspective to like cut the cord in that sense, rather than it being from the voice of the victim.
And talk us through some of the films that will be showcased during this time. Like, what are we expecting to see?
One of the films that launched 2 days ago was I Said No, you know, and where you find that a young woman was on a date with a young gentleman. And the young gentleman obviously saying that I'm paying for stuff, so obviously there's an expectation from it. And you realize that her worry is that she started having flashbacks of what happened to her when she was raped by a gentleman. So you find that all these stories of individuals that are carrying things in their minds, but they never get to talk about it. And we're hoping that with this campaign, we'll be able to get people engaging. And, you know, and another one was Boys to Men, you know, where a young man grows up and seeing his father being, you know, quite abusive to, you know, to the mom, and then his uncles, you know, all stereotypes of, you know, a man, a daughter, you know, you must be rude to your woman. And then he grows up and becomes that kind of man who doesn't really appreciate his partner. And then there are other different stories which I think, you know, are coming from different storylines, which you don't want to obviously give away. You know, we want people to watch and engage, you know, in the stories. And what's been great is seeing the voices come from these township creatives, you know, where in an environment that they've probably seen all these different kind of crimes happen, and just how they've put it together and packaged it into a short film which kind of like tells you the whole story in 2 to 3 minutes has for me been quite a, you know, quite an eye-opener.
And, you know, as Thato speaks about the different themes, I mean, you mentioned Boys to Men and No is No. You know, looking at the stories that come out of these townships, I mean, I see you're working in Alexandra, which, you know, also highlights so many social ills that we hear and learn of in society in general. When it comes to bashing stereotypes with these films, how are you hoping to add to the conversation and find solutions?
I mean, more than anything, because we are storytellers and we are creative content producers, I think more than anything, we have the power to be a medium that communicates to the audience in a way that they better understand. And we put focus on the important issues that they see it from a different perspective, and they themselves can have a spectrum, or rather like a wide view of what really is happening, and just pay more attention to that and kind of look into it. So we believe in being ourselves creatively and just telling these stories, and just hopefully the audience would understand it and actually take it upon themselves to, you know, do the work.
Thato, you've already mentioned that one film has already been released, and they'll be coming out throughout, the 16 days. Talk us through how this process will work, and where do we access these films, and all the logistics around it.
The content will be launched on our YouTube channel, which is Lim Academy. This is our YouTube channel where you find all the content that the students have been producing. And every single day at 11 o'clock, a content piece will be launched, and you'll get to be able to engage on it also on our social media platforms at Lim Academy, Gateway Media, and the different students also themselves are doing their part. Friends and family are also spreading the news. But I really do engage individuals to subscribe to our YouTube channel, engage on it, share the content, but more importantly, not just to watch the content, but engage and actually see how then do we come up with more solutions, to engage on the matters of gender-based violence. Because I think at some point in time, we have to stand up as a country, as a continent, as a global economy, to start engaging in these matters. So, and I think one of the other things is that seeing even the partners that have come on board, we really would like to thank the Gauteng Film Commission, because for them, normally they would want to just, fund films. But on this specific one, they said, you know what, maybe let's start using film to do something quite different and, start to engage in social issues, and which has been quite great.
And you speak about the social issues and the engagement on different levels. You speak about government's engagement here. What do you believe as a student, you've been engaging with the content and working with various elements of it? What do you believe are some of the misconceptions that you've found throughout this entire process as you've filmed and interacted and scripted? What are the most alarming misconceptions that you've found?
More than anything, if it was a misconception, I think it was more of like a different perspective, because I feel like we're more prone as women to say this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. But I kind of saw that we need to really take better care of the boy child. I was able to strip myself out of the equation. Not that I'm completely disregarding what's happening with women and the girl child, but I kind of saw we actually really should pay attention to the boy child, because that's the problem there. And with my fair share of experience just working at a juvenile recently, is from society. So that's the misconception in some sense, that we have to look at the deeper root of things and kind of solve the problem from there and work ourselves up.
Thato, what did you find to be interesting?
I think I want to utter what Rele just said, the boy child. Being a young man who grew up also without a lot of role models that were male, I could have potentially become one of those young men. But I think through other interventions, I was able to at least get out of certain situations. But I realized that even when I sit a lot of times, there is a voice that is never heard from the boy child. Is that we are never taught to talk, we are never taught to cry, we are never taught to be vulnerable. And through that, we hold on so much inside of us that sometimes it really comes out in acts of violence, emotional abuse. We never really sometimes even appreciate even our own moms, our sisters, and so forth. So I hope that even with this particular campaign and next year, that we really also start to have a balanced view on women and the boy child, because it's quite important to have a balanced view. And a balanced conversation between the two.
Absolutely. I want us to throw to a bite in a short bit. Let's just take a look at this.
How about I ease this tension? Can let us some.
Maybe later.
Come on, what do you mean maybe later? We're here now almost.
We're on a date, so we have to enjoy ourselves.
Come on, it's not like you don't want this.
No.
Hey, I don't understand. For why trying to get so much money from that and get salary? Hey, what's wrong with you? Even the creator of this is so easy. Fun.
Now, this is one of your films. What powerful message are you sending out with this one here?
I think no is no, and I think a lot of times as gentlemen, let's not then have the expectation that if you take a woman out and we pay for a dinner, that means that they must sleep with us. You know, if you go out on a date with an individual, go out on a date because of you really just want to engage, bond, you know, get to love her, you know, just to know somebody better. And if your expectation is to really have sex with the individual, I think maybe tell her up front so that she's prepared to make an informed decision to say, I am not willing to engage in those kind of activities. So it's either you then make the informed choice to want to go out on a date or not. It's just that for young men, just to be more respectful, you know. I mean, having sisters, man, I just hope that doesn't happen to my fellow sister or my fellow brother, you know. So I think the messaging for that was really that.
Well, what did you make of this spot?
I mean, I think it's more than what Thato said, but most importantly, the issue of consent as well. Because I feel like we tend to ignore that, and some have this sick perception in saying that some no seems like a yes, you know. So just understanding that no means no, and just respecting boundaries at the end of the day. So this is what I got from it, is that, you know, boys should really like just get it through their heads that no is no. Period.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you so
very
much.
much.
A really exciting program, this, and I'm just judging from that bite. I can see that the messages will do some healing and assist in the challenges of gender-based violence. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, bro.